Hello, my name is Mark Cartwright. I'm the head of the Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention team here at National Highways. I've been asked to really just give a quick presentation around some of the projects, some of the thoughts we have around some of our work going into future years. This is very much a little bit of a crystal ball piece, but these are projects that we're starting to work on at the moment. So I make no guarantee that they'll find their way to fruition, but hopefully you'll find them of interest, and hopefully, if you have any feedback or comments, we'd be happy to receive those. There's three main projects I'll be talking about as we go through this quick presentation. Number one is thinking about what we could be doing post collision on our network. As you probably appreciate, plan A is we stop people crashing and mitigate the damage that's caused by these kind of crashes. Plan B is we try and keep people alive post collision. There was a terrible stat we learned a while ago that you may be familiar with when we started talking to some of the blue light organisations about our ambitions in this space, and that's that a good 80% of those people that die before they reach hospital, in their opinion, could have been saved by some intervention, even just making the perfect 999 call and getting resources to site earlier. The paramedics need something to work with when they get to site, is the unfortunate truth about all of this. So the whole gist of this particular project is around trying to do what we can to speed up the response of the emergency services, and also doing what we can to keep individuals alive so the emergency services have got something to work with when they arrive on site. So, the horizon of the project is that 8-10 minutes that we're expecting the ambulance to turn up in at a particular incident. So, just again, a very brutal fact, I guess, as you can see on the screen, is that any one of us could die from a blocked airway in probably less than 4 minutes at a scene of an incident, but the target time for an ambulance to arrive on scene is 8 minutes. We're also very conscious of the fact that there's over 5 million commercial vehicle drivers, vans and truck drivers, using our network, and indeed other roads off our network on any particular day of the week. So the aim of this project is to try and reach into that audience to provide better knowledge, better skills, and greater confidence across these drivers of their ability to positively intervene in these kind of incidents. Our ambition is massive. We don't want this to be restricted to commercial vehicle drivers. We want to make these kind of resources available to any driver using the roads in the UK. But we're going to start with the civilian driver, the commercial driver piece. Okay, so what is it we're actually looking at? I guess I'm showing three things on there. There's actually four now that we're looking at. Number one is, how do we help the driver coming across the scene of an incident to make the perfect 999 call? How do we help them if they're going to stay around the scene? And it's important to note that we're not overly encouraging, we're not mandating, we're not trying to paint drivers into a corner where they feel obliged to stay at the scene, or even feel obliged to get involved with first aid. We're just trying to give those drivers, the people who are probably inclined to do stuff, better knowledge, better resources to be able to do that. So number one, how do we help the driver make the perfect 999 call? Number two, if they're staying at site, their vehicle is going to be somewhere. So let's try and help them position that vehicle sensibly. One, to protect themselves. Two, to potentially protect the scene. And thirdly, and importantly, so it's not going to get in the way of the blue lights, or indeed potentially cause another incident because of being left in the wrong position on the road. We're going to learn a lot from our own traffic office service about that. They do this day in, day out. This is their bread and butter. Number three on the list, if the driver at the scene is so inclined, let's try and help out a little bit in terms of first aid knowledge, and maybe even first aid equipment suitable to the environment that they find themselves in, and we'll come back to that in a second or two. And the fourth one, which isn't showing on there, is sadly we do get a number of incidents on our network involving attempted suicides. What can we help a driver do if they come across a person in crisis? How can we help them engage and defuse the situation? So, noble ambitions, I'm sure you'll agree. So if we look at the kind of the first aid piece, of this. The challenge really is around three issues. We're working with Professor Tim Nutbeam of Devon and Cornwall NHS Trust, is their leader of their trauma specialisms down there. He has a very straightforward view of life. Is in these circumstances, we're almost getting into kind of battlefield first aid and knowledge, and fundamentally there are three things that people die of before the first aid people, before the paramedics arrive on site, and that is blocked airways, cardiac issues, and bleeds. So the starting point, and any of you who have ever done any first aid will be very much aware of this, is if they're dead, they're dead. So the triage that we're asking somebody to apply on the scene of the site is if they're dead, sadly there's nothing we can do. It's the living that we're trying to look after. If people are making a lot of noise, if they're screaming off the top of their lungs, they may be in terrible pain, we accept that, absolutely, but they're probably fairly unlikely to die in the 8 to 10 minutes before the ambulance turns up. So it's the old mantra, it's the quiet ones that you need to be getting involved with. First of all, if it's a blocked airway, the answer is really straightforward, to be honest, is unblock it. So whether that's putting fingers in people's mouths to try and unblock it, whether it's using other objects to try and unblock, whether it's Heimlich manoeuvres, slapping people on the back, all the rest of it, let's help their airways get opened. If it's a cardiac issue, it's the old staying alive routine, for those of you who can remember the advert. So, you know, it's about CPR. If there are defibrillators available, better still. It's around, as I say, trying to keep the patient alive long enough for the trained paramedic with all the equipment to turn up. And bleeds, and a significant number of the deaths before hospital, these kind of collisions, are down to bleeds. Bleeds are either internal or external. He said, I know that's a statement to the blindingly obvious, but bleeds are external or internal. If it's internal, there's not a whole lot can be done until the patient has been extracted from the vehicle and has found themselves in a medical facility. So the time and the speed and the accuracy of the 999 call comes into play here. But sadly, an awful lot of the deaths are caused by external bleeds, and the old answer, as anybody will know if they've done first aid, is put something in there and push. Tourniquets do play a role. They do get a bit of a bad press, but there are opportunities for tourniquet application in this kind of scenario, because frankly, again, to labour the point, we're only really looking at keeping the patient alive for the 8 to 10 minutes it takes a trained paramedic to arrive on scene. So the way we were going to approach this is by creating some nice, tight, concise pieces of e-learning. Number one, about the perfect 999 call. How do you know where you are? A terrifying number of the calls that come into blue light call centres, a good 50%, the driver isn't particularly sure where they are. So how can we give them the tools to know where they are? How do we link them through to apps like what 3 words, etc., so they can describe to the call handler exactly their location. We're also very keen that they describe what they're seeing. Part of the feedback we've been getting from the blue light organisations is it's ever so easy to either under-resource the incident, so you don't turn up with the right amount and the right type of equipment, but equally there's also a danger in over-resourcing it and sending too much stuff there and leaving the responders with a hole in their system somewhere else in the geography. So we want to encourage the caller to describe what it is that they're seeing. Are there specific things that the call handler needs to know about, such as animals, such as the size and scale of the incident? Are there hazardous cargoes involved? And very topically, are there electric vehicles involved? Because they can present a whole new set of challenges for the blue light responders. So we've now made the best 999 call that anybody can make. We're now looking at the vehicle side of it. As I mentioned earlier, there'll be some nice tight little pieces of e-learning, micro-learning, probably, you know, measured in the minutes, to describe how the driver can best position their vehicle for all the reasons that we mentioned earlier about protecting the scene, and around, you know, not getting in the way of other motorists or to cause an incident or impeding the blue light services. And the first aid, again, there'll be some nice, concise, tight pieces of e-learning around each of the topics we've spoken about. And again, to come back to the fourth item that we haven't got on the presentation, the how to support and intervene in the case of coming across a person in crisis. Our ambition is these snippets of e-learning will be, as I say, concise. They'll be available in a format which lends itself to all kinds of ways of engagement and distribution, and will be broken down to a driver literally who has 5 minutes to spare at a call, for example, can look at it on their phone, do the training, get the acknowledgement for it, and away we go. Once the drivers have been through that training, our ambition is to issue them with some form of identity card so that they can demonstrate to anybody that wants that they have gone through this particular piece of training, and also potentially a distinctive high-vis vest so that when the blue lights turn up on scene, the individuals are immediately identifiable. So massive ambitions for this. Watch this space. We're moving at a fair pace on this particular project, so I'm fairly sure that we'll start seeing some outputs from this in the new year. So I hope you agree, interesting project, has significant potential benefits for the motoring public. The second big project we're involved with is what we're calling Operation Ping, Project Ping, which has proved to be harder than to say than I thought it would be, but Project Ping. The basic concept is we have significant numbers of cameras and various pieces of sensors scattered around the strategic route network, some of which are used for enforcement, others aren't. The equipment which is used for enforcement is only really being used for enforcement a relatively small amount of time, but they're all capturing data 24/7, 365. So the broad idea is that we work with commercial vehicle operators, large and small, to make available to them the information so they fundamentally know what we're seeing their vehicles doing when they're around the corner and out of sight, with the obvious intention that they sort themselves out and they remedy the issues before there's any need for escalation to enforcement agencies to pick these issues up. We've trialled it with a few very large commercial vehicle companies over the last few months, and it has to be said it went really, really well. We got terrific buy-in from them. We got terrific buy-in from their drivers and indeed their unions, where they're involved about identifying these issues and giving the business the opportunity to right the wrongs. You may have noticed I referred to what their vehicles are doing when they're around the corner and out of sight, and that's a really important point of this. We won't be able to identify the driver. All we will have are the registration numbers of the vehicles and a record of the proposed incident, normally with photographs. We're looking for businesses to opt in to the programme by providing us with an up-to-date list of their vehicle registration numbers, against which we will check what we're finding on the network. So very, very simple premise, seems to have be getting significant buy-in across the commercial vehicle operating industries. We're now at the technical feasibility stage, so we're involved in a mini project, if you like, or a pre-project, just to try and work out exactly what resources are available, who owns the hardware, who owns the data, how do we get the data made available, how do we build the number crunching machine behind the scenes to automate the process. But it's very much about this soft touch. Guys, here's an issue we feel that you ought to know about. Please do something about it before we have to take any further steps with our enforcement colleagues. So again, watch this space. And the final thing I just wanted to touch on with you today, and again, hopefully it'll give you an idea of our intentions, is we love our abbreviations here at National Highways, or NH as we now are. And we're also, certainly within my team, not particularly good at naming projects, as you might have noticed from Ping. IDATAX stands for I drive a truck and know stuff. There is a slightly bluer version of what the S stands for, but let's go with stuff for today. And IDATAX, you've probably worked out now, is I drive a van and know stuff. The broad premise of these particular projects, which again are at early days now, is we think there is possibly a way to work with businesses and importantly work with their drivers, the kind of drivers, and I apologise for any Daily Mail readers for this terrible sweeping generalisation that I'll now make, is the spawn of Satan truck driver or van driver that maybe Daily Mail editorial may refer to occasionally, is they're only the subball of Satan for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. The rest of the time they're somebody's dad or mom or their mate or their uncle or their brother or sister or whatever it happens to be. And what we want to try and find is a way that we can, for those who are interested in doing it, give them some of the little bits of resources that we can perhaps pull together to help them just have that conversation, that quick conversation with their kids, with their peer group, with their mate down the pub, whatever, about the stuff that they know because they drive a truck or a van. So it could be, you know, do you actually know what to do in the case of a breakdown? Certainly experience on our network will show us that an awful lot of people really don't have the first clue what to do in the case of a breakdown. Do they know about the limitations that an HGV driver has, for example, in terms of visibility? And there's a little clip of video we'll add into this presentation around vehicle blind spots, which we've produced recently, which is a perfect example of what we're trying to achieve.
Staying safe around lorries. You're a driver or a motorbike rider. Ken's a lorry driver, and when he's driving his lorry there are parts of the road he can't see. Ken knows them as blind spots, but you should think of them as danger zones. These are the danger zones around a lorry. Don't hang around in a lorry's blind spots. If you find yourself in one, manoeuvre safely out of it as soon as you can. Blind spots are danger zones. You may not be seen by the lorry driver. Don't hang around in the danger zones. Be seen, be safe.
So there's loads of topics like that where we think if we can just package it up and we can just find a nice way where it's nice and easy and accessible for drivers to use, or indeed businesses to use across other employees rather, we think that might just be a way of just trying to increase the general level of knowledge around how to operate on our network and outside of our network as well. So thank you very much. As I say, I make no promise that these schemes will see the light of day, but we're very enthusiastic. We're very keen to drive these through to completion. So watch this space, guys. And if you've got any feedback or comments, my contact details are on the screen now. So thank you very much.